going on, everyone? This is Matt, Squeaky Clean Air. It is the first official big vlog of 2023. There's a bunch of reels that I did. I'm gonna start to do a little bit more reels. I kind of like that on YouTube, so it's pretty dope. But it's gonna be the first official reel of 2023. And why not start with a bang? And what we're gonna do is we're gonna be bagging Mark 7 TSI Kaz's car, and I think it's gonna be pretty dope. This is just gonna be the first kind of big mod for Kaz for this year, because he's gonna be going wide body, and it's gonna be pretty neat. And we're the ones that are getting him on bags. He's gonna be running full Squeaky Clean Air digital setup, so I can't wait. Stay tuned. Okay, so here's Kaz's car. I put it up on the lift. The TSIs, GTIs, and all the VDubs are pretty much the same in the front. Mark 6s. They have a yoke over here, a yoke, and that basically pinches it in here. So the best thing what I do is I usually remove that first, just because it just gives a drop to the gravity. Let it kind of sit there, and it'll kind of gravity will do its thing over time. Obviously, this is this has to be spread using a spreader, a shock spreader. So nothing really out of the extraordinary when it comes to Mark 7, Mark 6 is the same kind of a setup. Certain BMWs as well. These end links, this one's kind of stuck. Usually they come off with an impact, but this one, I'm gonna have to put this in here and then kind of use an open-ended wrench and kind of loosen it up, because it doesn't want to come off. I can't clean that, but what happens is most of them are hex, like these, like this one. But you guys always, a tip, you guys make sure that these go in nice and snug, because if they don't fully go into these, just because of age and stuff like that, it's a very good way of them stripping. So it's very, very easy to strip sort of these bolts from the tie rod ends, especially if your end links, not tie rod ends, especially if you guys are going to reuse these. Then just be careful if you guys are loosening these up. Obviously, if they're seized on here because you live in a snow belt, winter belt, then you're going to have to use some heat on it in order to loosen them up and stuff like that. So, but what I like to do is I like to usually clean these out with a pick or anything like that, just to get rid of any sort of debris that's in there that's kind of been stuck in there. And then when you do that and you kind of clean them out, it'll be easier for you to sort of fit the hex in there, and that way it'll be less likely for you to strip it. The deeper they go in, the more of a grip it's going to have, the easier it's going to be to remove it. So I'm going to work on that, but I just wanted to share kind of this tip with you guys. Make sure you clean out the inner parts or inner bits of these these end link bolts or threaded ends, so it's easier for you guys to put these in when you're removing them, so it'd be less likely to strip it. Because if you strip it and these get stuck on there, and you live in a snow belt and it just gets seized and rusted, you guys, the only way to remove these is basically going to be to cut them off. So you want to avoid that. So here's a little tip for you guys. Okay, so one side is out. It's really easy to upgrade to air suspension when you're going from coilovers. Why? Is because majority of coilovers, the actual distance of the shock is a lot shorter. If we were removing the factory shocks, it would be a pain in the butt, simply because of the fact of the length of the factory shock. So what you got to do is, a lot of the times for the Mark 7s, depending on the car, obviously you got to pull the shaft out. That way you're able to kind of swing the whole assembly out, so then you can move it out, because look how much of the shock sits in. And this is still a coilover. These, I think, are jump coilovers. They're not a full coilover with an upper mount. You reuse the factory upper mount, so these are a little bit different. They don't have lower mounts and stuff like that that thread in. So these are the cheaper quality coilovers. They still work, I guess, if you're on a budget, so that's cool. But the point I'm trying to make is that if you're always going from coilovers to air struts, it's going to be a lot easier than going from factory suspension onto air struts, is because the air strut, obviously the shock's going to be a lot shorter now, right? The factory shocks are a lot larger, so it just becomes a pain in the butt when you're doing it. So keep that in mind. It's an interesting thing, but this one side is out. I had to actually lower these down all the way to the bottom just so I can get leverage because the shock was still too high because he had it raised for the winter. So we were able to do that. I'm gonna start working on the other side in order to put the air struts in, or the front struts for now, actually. And yeah, so I had to drop it down quite a bit. Look at all the threads, right? Also a different design on the cheaper quality coilovers, or the budget coilovers, is they don't really have an upper mount. They just thread on the actual shaft. The whole thing is a shaft. You know, there's a cost factor to cheaper stuff, so you get what you pay for. Don't kid yourself that, you know, oh look, I only spent $200 on coilovers. Yeah, you're gonna feel it. The right quality is gonna be crap after a time. Your shocks are gonna probably blow. You know, if you live in Cali and it's nice and warm, you know, and you don't have a lot of exposure to water or salt like we do in Canada, living in the snow belt or whatever they use now, beet juice or all that kind of stuff, it will eat into these coilovers and they won't last as much. So pay attention to that. You know, when you do purchase that set of $400 coilovers in a snow belt, and then when you take off your wheels and you try to adjust them, you know, for the summer and they're seized, and you pretty much have to throw them away. So keep that in mind. But anyways, so this side I had to adjust them all the way down just to shorten up the shock, to remove it out of the lower yoke here. And I'm going to do that on this side now. And we're going to put in brand new air struts. We're going to remove the shocks, and we're going to remove the springs on the back, and keep chiseling at it and getting closer to the prize, which is the air suspension. And I can't wait to see this thing on the ground. And Mark 7s, they do drop. But that's what I wanted to share with you guys in regards to that. All right, kids. That's right. It is anti-seize time. Why? Because we live in the snow belt. We live in the damn Canada, where we don't have beautiful summers like Florida and Cali. So definitely we're going to put it in. You don't want these little guys to seize. I know our air struts are anodized and they're coated against rust, but you know what? That can only go so far. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that everything is nice and coated. I like to put it on thick, just on a roll like that. So as I thread it in, it's going to be nice and juicy in there, part of a complete breakfast. But definitely we're going to do that on Kaz's setup, because Kaz, and like myself and many of my other customers, we daily our cars throughout winter, so we got to make sure that it can perform. Our air suspension performs in the winter and performs in the summer, and we drive our cars. You know, they're not all trailer queens. Some of them are, some of our cars are, but we like to drive our stuff hard. So definitely prepping it up. So you guys know I'm a strong advocate of using this stuff when it comes to you know, you don't want these to seize up. So take the extra time when you're doing an installation. Make sure if you go to an air shop, or a shop does your installation, make sure that they put anti-seize on the lower mount so they don't seize, and you'll be good to go. So we're going to do that up on the front. So we're going to do that up on the rear. So there's no ifs and buts when it comes to doing this stuff.